بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So in continuation of our discussion that one did the writing of the tafsir begin. We know that the Quran was gathered immediately after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, the original text. But when did the tafsir gathered? One, they say in the second part of the 2nd century. It took a long time for tafsir to be put in writings because they used to memorize it and pass it from one generation into another, from one person, from the teacher to the students, through verbal communication only. Memorization, verbal communication. But a time came that necessitated that it has to be put in writing. So we mentioned in the previous session that Mujahid ibn Jabr was the very first person of the Tabi'een. Tabi'een are the generation after the Sahaba, the companions, who put the tafsir of the Quran from beginning to the end, from Surah Al-Hamd, Fatihatul Kitab, till the last chapter in a book. And he said, this is the tafsir of my teacher Ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Abbas. And this book is printed, it's available. Tafsir Mujahid.
So Mujahid died in
104.
104.
Mm.
So meaning that he did the tafsir in the 1st century. If he wrote
The beginning, they consider once you pass the 100 years, you go into 101, they call it the second century. Started in the 2nd century.
I think you were questioning because you mentioned halfway through the 2nd century, right?
Right.
Beginning of the 2nd century.
Probably he finished it before he died.
I think
He died in 101, so he probably
Yeah,
finished in 100.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the
Beginning of this.
Tabi'een is when more of them started to do it.
Yeah.
So it was the 2nd century.
Yeah.
It became private.
Another tafsir was gathered by someone called Ata ibn Dinar. Ata ibn Dinar al-Misri. Ata died in 126 Hijri, and he gathered tafsir of his teacher Sa'id ibn Jubair, one of the Tabi'een called Sa'id ibn Jubair. This is not Adil Jubair, the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia, has nothing to do. This is a very noble man. And he died 95, he was killed 95 actually. Sa'id ibn Jubair, one of the greatest scholars of Islam and soldiers of Islam. Sa'id ibn Jubair, they call him one of the A'lam al-Tabi'een, one of the greatest figures in the 2nd generation of Islam, because he did not see the Prophet. He was born 46. So he was born 46 Hijri until 94. So he lived, unfortunately, only 49 years. When he was in his early 30s, he introduced his tafsir. And the tafsir was gathered by this man in a book. So the author is this, but the one who collected it is that one. Sa'id ibn Jubair, we spoke about him if you remember. He's the student of Ibn Abbas. He's the student of Abdullah ibn Abbas. And also he's one of the disciples I should say disciples, not followers, disciples of Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam. Imam Zain al-Abidin had few friends who were very close to him. The number one, when they mention the friends of Imam Zain al-Abidin and his disciples, they bring the name of Sa'id ibn Jubair. The other one is Sa'id ibn al-Musayyab. The other one is Abu Khalid al-Kabuli, was born in Kabul, Afghanistan. So those are the disciples of Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein Zain al-Abidin. And the reason why Sa'id was killed by whom? Exactly. Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi, the well-known tyrant, the infamous tyrant of Iraq. Hajjaj was acting upon the authority of Bani Umayyah, Bani Marwan. Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan assumed the Khilafah in Damascus. And he saw a dream one day that he's urinating in the mihrab 4 times. So he asked his Hashia, Hashia are a bunch of hypocrites. They don't tell the Khalifa the truth, even if they know. He said, we don't know. So he was worried, saw himself urinating in the mihrab 4 times. So they said, let's ask Sa'id and Jubair. He is, to be known as, someone who knows tafsir al-ru'ya. He's expert in knowing the dreams. Sa'id ibn Jubair said to him, you're going to be, not to the caliph immediately, to the messenger who brought him the message. He said, go back to him, tell him you're going to be given 4 vicious children. They're going to be caliphs after you. And this is exactly what happened. Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan, he had Hisham ibn Abd al-Malik, Yazid ibn Abd al-Malik, Walid ibn Abd al-Malik, and another one. Hisham, Walid, Yazid, and another name. 4, they assumed Khilafah after their father, Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan. This is Al-Marwan. When you hear Al-Marwan, Ala Ziyad wa Ala Marwan wa Ala Umayyah, this is Al-Marwan. One is worse than the other. He gave him the dream, tafsir of the dream. Urinating 4 times on the mihrab, meaning Iranians have a expression, I don't want to use it on camera. They did this in religion, so, those khulafa, they did this in religion, urinated in religion. And this is really what they did. This is exactly what they did to Islam. Yes, sorry.
Is it the guy who used to puke in the mihrab? Was one of them who got drunk?
Yeah, one of them. Yeah, he did, yeah, he threw up inside the mihrab. Yeah, they used to get drunk. رضي الله عنهم وأرضاهم أجمعين, as they say about them when they mention them. So he was murdered. The reason why Sa'id ibn Jubair was murdered, because he was the disciple of Imam Zain al-Abidin. He was a black, by the way. Black-faced, but his heart was white and bright, illuminating with taqwa, with knowledge. He lived in Kufa. So who led the school of Kufa in tafsir?
Ibn Mas'ud.
Ahsant, Abdullah bin Mas'ud. And who led the school of Medina? Medina al-Munawwar.
Ubay.
Exactly, أحسنت. Ubay ibn Ka'b al-Khazraji al-Ansari. And who led the school of Mecca?
Ibn Abbas.
Abdullah ibn Abbas. And who led the school of Sham? Another noble man, though it is Sham, but noble man.
Uwaymir.
Uwaymir ibn Amir. His nickname, his popular name is Abu Darda. Again, Uwaymir ibn Amir al-Khazraji al-Ansari. Both are Ansaris. And who established the school of Basra, the school of Tafsir in Basra? Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, who was well known, especially his son, well known, كان معروفا في بغضه لعلي بن أبي طالب. Some people will hide the hate, they hide it, they are diplomatic. Some people disclose it public. So his son was disclosing this, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. So
in the Abu Darda, some people put it alongside Abu Hurairah. Even Shias, many Shias.
Abu Dhar,
No, Abu Darda.
Abu Darda.
They
No. Abu
say
Darda, when
was
they
questionable.
No. Abu Darda, he lived in Syria, in Damascus. So we have to give him the benefit of the doubt. But in conclusion, they say he wholeheartedly supported Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he defended it. Despite the atmosphere I mentioned one day when he came into the mosque and he mentioned Ali in goodness, people turned فَأَعْرَضَ النَّاسُ عَنْهُ. They turned away from him as if he did some heresy. He spoke some heresy. So because of his location where he lived, the environment was not a pro-Ahlul Bayt, that environment in Sham. So maybe in some occasions he would say something, he would do something. So we have to give him the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes you live in an area which is secure, you have a freedom. Freedom of allegiance, freedom of expression. But when you live under oppression, your life is being threatened, then you have to be careful. Abu Darda is accepted. And they say he was muwali to Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Okay. So Sa'id ibn Jubair also wrote, this person, Ata, wrote the tafsir that he received from Sa'id ibn Jubair. Sa'id ibn Jubair, who because of being stable and forceful in his loyalty to Ahlul Bayt, he was murdered year 95 by Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. Subhanallah, Hajjaj, after this murdered, Hajjaj died in 96 when he murdered Sa'id. And after murdering, they say in the history, after murdering Sa'id, he could not sleep the night. He did not have peace. He would see nightmares and he will scream. Both have been reported. They screamed during the night. One Muawiyah before him, the second was Hajjaj. Hajjaj would wake up and yell and scream, Mali wali Sa'id ibn Jubair. Mali wali Sa'id. What is between me and Sa'id ibn? He murdered him and then he says, Mali wali Sa'id. What is between me and him? Until he died. Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, during his death, he was seen screaming and yelling in his dream, in his sleep, and says, Ya Layli, my night, Ya Hijru minka tawil. I have a long lasting night because of you, Ya Hijr, after he murdered Hijr. And both were murdered by sword. Hijr bin Uday with the 12 of his friends before they reached Damascus in Marj Adra. They captured them and Muawiyah ordered them to be beheaded. And they are buried there. If you go to Damascus, I have been to their shrine, Hijr ibn Uday alayhi salam. قُتِلَ صَبْرًا. They handcuffed them and they beheaded them just because they are loyal to Amir al-Mu'mineen.
Is that the grave they dug up?
Yes, yeah, they did. They dig up to take the body. When there was, Shuluch Bulugh in Syria, revolution or whatever it's called, they demolished the grave of Hajr ibn Adi.
Did they find the
Adi.
body?
No, they didn't, alhamdulillah. So, and the second one was, so Hajjaj died in 96. After that, Hajjaj died in 96. Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal says about Sa'id ibn Jubair. He says, قتل الحجاج سعيد بن جبير. Hajjaj murdered Sa'id ibn Jubair. وما على وجه الأرض أحد إلا وهو مفتقر إلى علمه. مفتقر إلى علمه. No one on the surface of earth that day, the day where Sa'id died, Hajjaj murdered him, but he is in need to Sa'id's knowledge. This is Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. This is the testimony that he gives about Sa'id ibn Jubair. Everyone on the surface of earth on that day was in need, in desperate need to his knowledge. مفتقر إلى علمه. Abdullah bin Abbas, of course, 30 years before this incident died, or 28 years, 29 years. When the people of Kufa used to come to Abdullah bin Abbas in Mecca, they asked him about question. He says, why do you come asking me while you have in your midst, you have Sa'id ibn Jubair? Go ask him. You don't need to come to Mecca to ask me about these fiqhi or shari'i questions. So this is the Walid, Yazid, Sulaiman, Hisham. Those are the four caliphs, the children of. There is another one by the name of Sa'id ibn Musayyib. We studied him, if you remember. Another tabi'i who's also scholar, also mufassir of the Quran. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib. That one died at the age of 80. Whereas this one died at the age of, was killed at the age of 49. Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, another mufassir from the tabi'in generation. Mufassir of the Quran. Naam, Habibi.
Ibn Jubair lived at the same time as
Yeah.
Abbas?
Yeah.
So, but then...
No. Ibn Abbas died before him, but when he was young, he was able to receive from Ibn Abbas.
No. Mujahid ibn Jubair. He was at the same time, right?
Yes. Mujahid was... Mujahid died 104. 104.
After him.
Yeah.
So then what's...
Mujahid died. Mujahid was even born before him, because Mujahid was born 21 and that died 104. And both they received from Abdullah bin Abbas.
So then what's the difference in their tafsir? Because...
The difference is some of them, we are not speaking about the differences. We are speaking about who collected and put the tafsir in a book.
Okay.
So we gave two examples. One example yesterday of Mujahid, who put it in a book. His teacher is Ibn Abbas, he puts it in a book. The second example is Ata ibn Dinar, who puts the tafsir of Sa'id ibn Jubair, who was the student of Ibn Abbas.
Was he Egyptian?
This is, see, Ibn Abbas. So the original, and this is, I should say, Imam Ali. The original Mufassir is Imam Ali. Ibn Abbas is his student. Sa'id ibn Jubair received his knowledge firsthand from Ibn Abbas. Ata ibn Dinar, he got the tafsir of Sa'id and he put it in a book. He didn't do tafsir. It's not his tafsir. He gathered. He collected it.
So we can say he's a student of him, right? Or no? Or not exactly. But...
They say he didn't meet him. He saw the books, because the book was written by the order of the caliph of the time. by the order of the caliph of the time. The caliph of the time was Abdul Malik ibn Marwan himself. Abdul Malik ibn Marwan asked Sa'id ibn Jubair to write the tafsir, to put together a book of tafsir. So Sa'id ibn Jubair did write it. And by the way, many of the history books, tafsir books, fiqh books were written manyha by the order of the caliph. We have hundreds of examples. A book was written, either book of fiqh, ahkam, or book of tafsir, or book of history, was written by the order of the caliph. He will come to this prestigious, well-known alim and he tell him, I order you to put a book in tafsir. In both Sunni tradition and Shia tradition. Al-Muwatta, Imam Malik, very famous book in the Maliki tradition. It was written by the order of the caliph. Gave an order to Imam Malik, I want you to write a book, fiqh book. We introduce it as the constitution of the state. Our fiqh, we will act upon this in the mahakim, in the judiciary. Allam al-Majlisi, in the Shia tradition. He writes 110 volumes at the order of the Qajar, caliph or sultan. So this was written by Sa'id ibn Jubair. They say Ata found it in the Diwan, in the library of the government, like the library of the Congress here in Washington. And then he developed it and he made it a book of tafsir. So not necessarily, because some people say he didn't listen to the tafsir from Sa'id firsthand. He found it in the Diwan and then he, edits the book, he prepares it and he prints it out. Yes?
My question was more like, shouldn't those tafsir or the recording should be similar in terms of tafsir?
Yeah, they could be similar. They could be similar. Many tafasir, if you go and look at the tafasir in both the traditions, if you read them, they are similar. Sometimes they say the same sentence, exactly the same sentence. Same sentence. Sometimes it's different. So it is similar. There is no conflict. However, we will study this. Sometimes the student has some impression. Now, if I examine your books, some things that you have written is similar, something is different. Because of your impression of what I said. You have an impression, he has an impression, that has. The level of the impression is different. So sometimes the teacher is one, the students are different, and their interpretations of what the teacher said, their understanding of their teacher is different. Though the teacher said one sentence, but it depends on the level of the education of the students too.
So there might be
So we cannot say that the teacher contradicted himself. No. See, today when we have Bahth al-Kharij, the marja', the scholar comes and he throws a theory, and that is the highest level. This is how they train. This is the residency. Doctors have residencies, we also have residency. So you have to attend 3 years, 4 years, whatever, 10 years sometimes. Residency. They train you. Train you how to extract the law. So he throws a theory. And then he does open discussion. Why it is called Kharij? Kharijul Kitab. Outside the book. Means free discussion, open discussion. And they write, 500 students are writing. Some of them, they bring it to the teacher to see. This is good. This is powerful. That one is recycle it. You didn't even understand what I said. Go recycle this. So it depends on the level of the student. And you find those students, let's say from year such to year such, they recorded the classes, the lessons of their teacher, and they published them. But you see them different. Different because the difference is not in the teacher, the difference is in the students. Their reception, their capacity, their isti'dad is different. It's different.
So that would mean that the more different impression or input from all will give us a better.
Yeah, opinions, different opinions. You read this one, you read that one. We will come to this. We will come to the methods of interpretation later on, inshallah. We will come to this. Okay. So, Sa'id ibn Jubair, he puts a book, in fact. But for some reasons, the book was hidden until Ata ibn Dinar published the book, brought it out to light. Another tafsir during the Tabi'een, another tafsir, which is well known. Yeah.
Clearly because he was killed?
Yeah. Yeah.
They had his book after they killed him, maybe?
Probably. They put it in the Diwan, yes.
Yeah. So they had to resurrect it in a different order.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. There is Hassan al-Basri. Hassan al-Basri is what? Do you know him? Huh? Died 116 Hijri. There is a controversy surrounding Hassan al-Basri. Some say he was loyal to Imam Ali alayhi salam. He was his student. Some say he diverted from Imam Ali. He diverted from him. So Hassan al-Basri, which is considered also one of the Tabi'een, he was not Sahaba, and he is considered what? Mu'tazilite or Ash'arite? Hassan al-Basri. Mu'tazilite. One of the leaders of Mu'tazilite. Hassan al-Basri. His Amr ibn Ubaid wrote the tafsir of Hassan al-Basri. And Amr died 144 Hijri. So the founder of the tafsir, the author is Hassan al-Basri. The scribe is Amr ibn Ubaid. Amr ibn Ubaid is nicknamed Shaykh al-Mu'tazila. He's the leader of Mu'tazila, but he's the student of Hassan al-Basri. So there are others. We took 3 or 4 examples, but there are many others that have been written in the second generation of Tabi'een, after the Sahaba. They were put in a book, formally put in a book of tafsir. This is how the tafsir tradition and business emerged from the time of the Tabi'een. Each Tabi' would be the student of someone who was before him, who could be also Tabi', or he could be Sahabi, so the Prophet. And then he will. Now, is Ibn Abbas Sahabi or Tabi'? Sahabi, but he was only 10 years old when the Prophet died. So he received his knowledge from Imam Ali alayhi salam. Not first hand from the Prophet.
Right.
Not first hand from the Maybe he heard the Prophet saying a couple of hadith, but he was 10 years old.
Because automatically a Sahabi means you just heard the Prophet one time.
Saw or heard. Yeah.
Khalas,
Khalas. You have immunity for the rest of your life. Diplomatic immunity. You go to Jannah just because you heard the Prophet or you saw him. Okay? Now, during the Tabi'een, the tafsir was basic tafsir. It means the translation. Translation of the ayah. What God is trying to say, no more than that. they do not expand more than that. They do not elaborate. No expansion, no elaboration, no more research, no more other sciences into this. It's an exact tafsir. No more than that. But the expansion in tafsir started they say, started by a man who died in the year 207 Hijri. He wrote the first book, which really was not just tafsir, but something more than tafsir. And that is Abu Zakaria Yahya ibn Ziyad al-Farra. Yahya ibn Ziyad, his name is al-Farra. He's well known by this last name, al-Farra. Al-Farra, who died in 207. And he, beside the translation of the Quran, which is tafsir, literal tafsir, he added adab al-Quran. Adab al-Quran wa khasa'is al-lugha. Adab al-Quran. So it's a book of literature, literary book. Adab al-Quran. Meaning that he speaks about the linguistic characterization of the Quran. When it comes to grammar, Arabic grammar, it comes to literature, it comes to adab, it comes to balagha, eloquence. So he would mention these in the Quran. Not only the translation of the ayah, but the beauty of the ayah too. The beauty of the language too. The beauty of the language, because every verse has a beauty. Every word in the Quran is beautiful. So he delves into explaining the beauty of this verse, not just its meaning. Sometimes the meaning only. He gives the meaning and then he goes. But sometimes he says, what is the root of this kalima? Why did God use this word, not that word? What is the difference between this word and that word? So these specifications are mentioned in many books. And this is Adab al-Quran. Okay. Now, the tafsir started to develop. Develop from where to where? What was the first type of tafsir we saw? What do we call it? The first type of tafsir that was written. It was called التفسير بالمأثور. What does al-ma'thur mean? What is ma'thur, first of all? What is the meaning of ma'thur? What do we mean by athar here? Specific, there is specific name. Athar means a trace. But what do you mean by it here when you say?
The impact.
No. Ma'thur means hadith. Riwayat, hadith. Or riwayat. So they are translating the Quran through the riwayat. Or sometimes the Quran itself. It means the text. When you see ma'thur, ma'thur means text. A text. Okay? So that was the basic tafsir. Then after that, it started to develop into more than just text. I am telling you the text, narrating to you, transmitting to you the text regarding the Quran. I am just bringing the hadith that explains this verse. Started to develop into what? What do you expect after ma'thur? More elaboration. Into what?
Ta'wil.
Yeah, but ta'wil, what do we call it here? Al-ijtihad al-aqli. Because this one, my friend, وإعمال الرأي والنظر. Because in the first step here, تفسير المأثور, the first step, you are only transmitting the hadith. You are telling me what the hadith is saying about this ayah, but you are not elaborating further. You are not telling me what else. But now in the second step, my friends, in the second step, the mufassir, just look at me for 1 second. The mufassir is not only transmitter. He brings you the hadith. He also has a role. He presents his own opinion too. This is more important. Sometimes the hadith, the mufassir is transmitting, taking from here, giving to the, delivering a letter. He has no role, just delivery. But this is not just delivery. This is ijtihadul aqli. He's using his reason, his brain, incorporating his personal effort into finding out about this verse. And this is very important. Now, we mentioned in the beginning of Ulum al-Quran, when we started studying, that there are hadith that says, Man fassara al-Quran bi-ra'yihi halak. If someone presents his personal interpretation of the Quran, he's going to perish. He's going to be doomed. So is this then halal or haram? Is this legitimate or illegitimate process?
Using procedures to reach that.
Exactly. Always remember this. Always remember. Within rules and regulations, you must do ijtihad. Without rules and regulations, don't do ijtihad.
Is this ta'wil?
Ta'wil, again, we can take it from texts. Ta'wil, every ayah, they say, has tafsir and ta'wil. Ta'wil, the surface meaning, the upper meaning. Ta'wil is the hidden meaning. But this one, we are speaking about the process. In the past, the primitive way, the elementary way, was one they just transfer the text. They put the text, Fulan Imam, Fulan Sahaba said that this is the meaning of the ayah. That's it, ma'thur. They just put the text. They don't have any role. They don't give their opinion. Then they started to develop slowly into putting their own opinion, but not any opinion, an opinion of an expert within rules and regulations and through a specific procedure. Specific procedure. Then you are allowed. If you don't have certificate, then don't practice. This is in every profession. If you don't have certificate, then you are not allowed to practice. They arrest you. Same thing with tafsir. Same thing with fiqh. With any science. Allah says, I give you freedom. Freedom of ray, expression. I have given you the aql. I want you to use it. But then you have to go to school within these boundaries, not outside these boundaries. Not you bring something which is baseless. You say, no, I say this opinion because I am sure. I am sure because of such and such and such. I compare this to other verses. This is the result of my studies, 30 years, 40 years. I'm an expert in this field. So you are allowed to give your opinion if you are an expert. If you are not an expert, then فَلْيَتَبَوَّأْ مَقْعَدَهُ مِنَ النَّارِ. Let him reserve his seat there. Then after that, they started to add more and more to the tafsir. Other types of sciences, ulum, ma'arif. Then philosophy came in. Then ilm al-kalam, theology, and so on and so forth. We're going to study what types of tafsir now we have. Now we have 7, 8, 9, 10 types of tafsirs. Each one has takhassus, speciality in one field. One of them looks at the Quran from the adab point of view. From a grammar, only grammar. We have certain books. One of them looks in the Quran from the kalam, ilmul kalam view. One of them looks into the Quran from history point of view. So they have specialities in both the traditions. The Shias they have, the Sunnis they have. And these books are well known. Before I conclude, this reminds me, this development and evolution reminds me of Mimbar al-Husayni. They say Mimbar 200 years ago was someone who comes, who recites only the musibah of Imam Hussein, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Musibah, and then he goes. 10 minutes. Then slowly they said, no, you have to add, in order for you to get the packet, the hadiyah. It's not enough 10 minutes.
You have to add value.
You have to add value into it. So they started to say maw'idah. Let's say they started saying hadith, about akhlaq, about manners, about taqwallah, these things. Hadith 1, 2, 3. Then they said even the hadith is not enough, you have to add stories. So they started saying stories. So slowly, from 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, now, mashallah, the mimbar, now some of them, they go to the moon, they go to the Jupiter, they bring economic theories, psychological theories, astronomy, physics, chemistry, they have to put into that mimbar. So the mimbar now is about an hour and a half, mashallah. But really it started with only eulogy of Imam Hussein. They recite only shi'r, poetry, one qasida, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and then they say dua. Now the mimbar, mashallah, is 3 hours. So it's evolved. And some of them, they speak about every science, every technology, except Imam Hussein. They forget to mention Imam Hussein at the end. I've seen some of those. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم